Triple H finally broke his silence and delivered an emotional, unfiltered truth that has shaken the wrestling world to its core. What really led to the tragic death of Hulk Hogan? The truth, as revealed by WWE's chief content officer, will leave you stunned. This wasn't just another celebrity passing, it was a wake-up call for an entire industry. Behind the glitz and the larger-than-life persona was a man battling pressures few could comprehend. This deep dive into Triple H's heartfelt statement uncovers the reality of what happened and why it matters now more than ever. It all began on what seemed like an ordinary Friday morning at WWE headquarters. Then, at 9:03 a.m. Eastern, an internal email was sent with a subject line so short yet devastating: "Loss of a legend." Minutes later, that same announcement erupted across the global media, hitting fans like a lightning strike. Shockwaves tore through the wrestling community, but inside WWE's Titan Towers, something even heavier filled the air: silence. Not just grief, but an unsettling, suffocating silence. And at the heart of that silence stood one man, Paul Levesque, better known to the world as Triple H. He wasn't just a company executive that day. He was a man wrestling with a truth he had feared for years, a truth about an industry that builds icons, glorifies their strength, but often ignores their struggles until it's too late. For 3 days, Triple H said nothing. No tweets, no PR statements, no interviews. This wasn't news that could be dressed up in corporate language or reduced to a social media soundbite. It was a reality that required more than a press release. It required courage. And when he finally stepped onto the stage at the WWE Performance Center for an unscheduled press conference, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Reporters sat in complete silence as Triple H entered. Gone was the polished executive look. His eyes were hollow, his beard unkempt, his voice trembling as he began. "I've waited 3 days to talk because I needed time to gather the facts," he said, his tone heavy with emotion. "But more importantly, I needed time to gather the courage because this is going to hurt." Then came the raw honesty no one expected. Triple H didn't just recount Hogan's greatest moments, the WrestleMania triumphs, the NWO era, the immortal red and yellow. He didn't glorify the legend. Instead, he spoke of the man behind the myth, a man celebrated by millions, yet exploited and isolated behind the curtain. "WWE lost a brother," Triple H said softly, his voice breaking. "But I lost something else. I lost a reminder that we are all human. That even the strongest icons can die quietly under the weight of what we refuse to fix." The room froze in silence, every word cutting deeper than the last. Then Triple H revealed what no one had said out loud until that moment. "Terry had been trying to get our attention," he admitted, referring to Hulk Hogan by his real name. "Quietly, through intermediaries, through messages that went unnoticed or unspoken." It was a confession that hinted at systemic issues, signs of struggles ignored, calls for help drowned out by the roar of the spotlight. This wasn't just about one man's death, it was about a culture that rewards invincibility but punishes vulnerability. And in that moment, the world saw Triple H not as an executive or a legend, but as a man haunted by what might have been prevented. Do you want me to continue expanding this into a full 5-minute script with dialogue, emotional tone, and a powerful ending for a video or podcast? Or should I keep it as an extended article-style narrative? Triple H has finally broken his silence in a way that has left the entire wrestling world stunned and heartbroken. The question everyone is asking is simple yet painful: what really led to the tragic death of Hulk Hogan? The truth, as revealed by WWE's chief content officer, isn't just shocking, it's a devastating reflection of the industry and its hidden struggles. This isn't just another story about a wrestling legend passing away. It's a story about the human cost of fame, the crushing weight of expectations, and the silence that often surrounds suffering behind the bright lights of the wrestling world. What started as a seemingly normal day at WWE headquarters quickly spiraled into one of the darkest and most defining moments in the company's history. On a humid Friday morning, an internal email was sent at 9:03 a.m. Eastern Time to every member of WWE staff. Its subject line was painfully short: "Loss of a legend." Within minutes, that same message exploded across social media and news outlets worldwide, hitting fans like a thunderclap. For millions who grew up idolizing Hulk Hogan, the man who defined professional wrestling for decades, the news was beyond comprehension. But inside Titan Towers, the shock ran deeper than any fan could imagine. What lingered in those halls wasn't just grief. It was silence, an eerie, suffocating silence that felt heavier with every passing second. And standing in the middle of that silence was one man, Paul Levesque. The world knows him as Triple H. This was not the confident, sharp-dressed executive that the media often sees. This was a man carrying a burden he had long feared would one day come to pass. Triple H had spent his life building legacies, guiding careers, and protecting a business that shaped him, but now he found himself staring at a truth that couldn't be ignored. Hulk Hogan, one of the most iconic figures in wrestling history, was gone, and the reasons why could no longer be swept under the rug. For 3 long days after the news broke, Triple H stayed silent. No tweets, no official statements, no press releases. The world waited, but nothing came. And that silence spoke volumes. Because this wasn't a tragedy that could be softened with corporate language or a sanitized tribute video. This was something deeper, something that demanded honesty. It demanded courage. Then, on the 3rd day, without warning, WWE announced an unscheduled press conference at the Performance Center. Every major wrestling journalist and media outlet scrambled to attend. The air was thick with tension as cameras were set up, reporters murmured quietly, and the world tuned in, desperate for answers. And then he walked in. Triple H looked nothing like the man fans were used to seeing. There was no suit, no tie. His beard was untrimmed, his face was pale, and his eyes were heavy with sleepless nights. He didn't exude power that day, he radiated pain. And when he finally spoke, his voice carried a tremble no one had ever heard from him before. "I've waited 3 days to talk," he began slowly, his words cutting through the silence, "because I needed time to gather the facts." He paused, drawing a shaky breath. "But more importantly, I needed time to gather the courage, because this is going to hurt." The room fell completely still. No clicking cameras, no scratching pens, just the hum of the air conditioning and the weight of what was about to be said. Everyone expected a formal statement, a polished tribute to Hulk Hogan's legendary career. But what they got was something raw, something human. Triple H didn't just talk about Hulk Hogan the superstar. He didn't just recount WrestleMania 3 or the birth of the NWO or the red and yellow that became symbols of wrestling's golden age. He stripped away the myth and spoke of the man, Terry Bollea. A man who had carried the entire wrestling industry on his back, a man celebrated like a god but living with pain, pressure, and isolation that few could understand. WWE lost a brother, Triple H said softly, his voice breaking for the first time. But I lost something else. I lost a reminder that we are all human. That even the strongest icons can die quietly under the weight of what we refuse to fix. The words hung heavy in the room. And then, Triple H went deeper, revealing something that left everyone shaken. "Terry had been trying to get our attention," he admitted, his eyes fixed on the floor. "Quietly, through intermediaries, through conversations that never reached the right ears. He was telling us in his own way that he needed help, but in this business, asking for help feels like weakness. And that's on all of us." It was a confession that spoke to a larger truth about professional wrestling, a world that glorifies toughness, demands sacrifice, and often punishes vulnerability. A world where legends are celebrated publicly but left to fight their private battles alone. Triple H's voice cracked again as he said, "This industry, it builds heroes, but it doesn't always protect them. And Hogan paid that price." In that moment, the reality hit hard, not just for WWE, but for every fan watching. This wasn't just about losing Hulk Hogan. It was about a culture that needs to change. It was about the hidden toll of fame, the physical and mental struggles that go unseen behind the curtain. Triple H didn't just deliver a statement that day. He delivered a reckoning. And as he walked away from the podium, head bowed and shoulders heavy, the room remained silent. There were no follow-up questions, no media frenzy, just the undeniable truth echoing in everyone's mind. Hulk Hogan wasn't just a wrestling icon. He was a man who needed help, and the system failed him. And now, the question isn't just what killed Hulk Hogan, but what will change so this never happens again.